The state we are talking about is Maharashtra, because you've been seeing these headlines for the past many days. Now Shiv Sena is coming, now it's not coming. This lover stiff between BJP and Shiv Sena is going on. They contested elections together. One has got 105 seats, one has got 55 seats. One who's got 55 seats, that's almost half of the other one, says, look, I want 50% of the spoils. So 55 seats, 50% of your partner's seats, and you want half of all the spoils. So what is this politics and what is this game? What is happening in Maharashtra? Why? And what is going to happen? And I will also tell you a little bit more about Shiv Sena, because that's a unique phenomenon in Indian politics and why it has come to this pass right now. Now, I have explained to you in the past, I think when we were talking about the Northeast and how BJP acquired these governments in the Northeast, the concept of leveraged buyout in politics. Leveraged buyout is when you have leverage with something, you may not have strength on the ground, and you say, look, I have this leverage, you better come with me, you can stay in power and you will be undisturbed. Or it can also be, my leverage is ED, CBI, Income Tax Department. Either you be a good boy or C, you might have to face some trouble, or if you're facing some trouble, you can be out of this trouble. So leverage can be of many kinds. There is and that is what we saw in the Northeast. For example, in states where BJP did not even win a single seat, it had people come together, or if one maybe one seat or two seats, it got people to come together, form governments which became BJP governments. That is leverage of the big guy. Then there is also leverage of the small guy. You can call it tail wagging the dog in English. हिंदी में हम बोलेंगे छोटी मछली जब बड़ी मछली को खाती है. It is not something that we have not seen in Indian politics. In fact, there are several examples, but couple of examples are very current. See what you have in Bihar. Nitish Kumar has fewer seats than BJP, but he is the chief minister and he calls the shots, even though there are tensions lately, but he does call the shots. Why? Because without Nitish Kumar, that coalition, BJP by itself cannot get a majority. Without Nitish Kumar, they don't have a face. So Nitish Kumar's leverage is just his personality. The other case, which is not that successful, is the case of Devagowda's party in Karnataka, that is Kumaraswamy. He's twice been chief minister of Karnataka, once in partnership with BJP, once in partnership with the Congress. Each time, he had fewer seats than his partner. So this was again the leverage of the weaker partner. And what is that leverage? That look, you might have more seats than me, but unless I join hands with you, your more seats are worth nothing. You will sit in the opposition or there will not be a government. And also my loyalties and my politics and my ideology is fully fungible. I can go to either side. Now we come to the situation in Maharashtra, where Shiv Sena is trying to use the same power by saying, look, I may have 55, you have 105. If I had not gone with you, maybe you would not even have got 105. I mean, that's a game of ifs and buts. But today, if I don't go with you, I can go with Congress and NCP. If they let me become chief minister, as Congress party did with Kumaraswamy, there is a recent precedent. So if they could have done it there, I'm being reasonable. I'm not saying make me chief minister for all 5 years. I'm saying half and half, because I may have half the seats that you have, but if I deny you those, you cannot form a government, because you cannot go with Congress party. And I will not say impossible, but it's tough also for NCP right now to go with BJP. BJP then has to think which is the party they can split, because they have the power to split. Is it NCP, is it Congress, or is it Shiv Sena itself that they want to split? And there is talk that BJP may be splitting Shiv Sena. Now, first of all, my own guesswork is that ultimately it will be a lover's tiff. There will be some kind of an arrangement and a BJP Sena government will be put together. But I can also see where Sena's frustration and anger is coming from. And I will read some highlights for you of vote percentages and seats, and see how the trend has developed, and you can see it on the chart behind me also in detail. See, in 1990, I'm using 1990 because 1989 is when the Congress began to decline in India. 1984 I'm not taking because Rajiv Gandhi's Congress swept everything in that period. So 1989 onwards, India's politics started a return to normal again. In 1990, if you check, Shiv Sena had 52 seats in the state elections. BJP had 42 seats. So Shiv Sena had more than BJP. Shiv Sena's vote share was 15.9%. BJP was 10.7%. So 1.5 times as much as the BJP. Then you come 5 years later, 1995. Now Babri Masjid, Ayodhya, etc. have happened by now. BJP is on the rise. Now BJP gets 65 seats, 12.8% of the vote. So vote share has just gone up a little bit. Shiv Sena is again ahead with 73 seats and 16.4% of the vote. Mark that figure, 16.4, because we'll come to it more than once again, and thereby lies a story. 1999, Shiv Sena got 69, BJP got 56, Shiv Sena got 17.3% of the vote, BJP got 14.5. Now, what are you seeing? You are seeing that that Shiv Sena's vote with 15.9 in 1990 has barely come to 17.3. It has only come about 2% more. Whereas BJP's vote from 10%, 10.7% in 1990 by this time has come to 14.5%. BJP is catching up with Shiv Sena. Then 2004, that's the election, then finally that with the Congress staged a comeback generally. Shiv Sena gets 62, BJP gets 54 seats. This is when BJP Sena don't have enough and they lose power. Remember, 62 plus 54 is not 145. That is the majority mark in Maharashtra. But yet, BJP gets 13.7% as before, and Shiv Sena gets 20, so they go up a little bit. Now 2009, there is an alliance. The two parties are together. Two parties are together, and together they win 90 seats. BJP 46 seats, 14% vote. Shiv Sena 44 seats, 16.3% vote. I told you that we'll come back to that 16.3% figure. So in 2009, 16.3% vote, 1995, 16.4% vote, and then it 15.9% in 1990. That is the ballpark vote percentage that the Shiv Sena has been getting. And see what happened this time in 2019. 2019, BJP 105 votes, seats, Shiv Sena 56 seats, about half of the BJP. BJP 25.75% vote, Shiv Sena 16.4% vote. So Shiv Sena is back to its essential vote, that is 16.345% vote. When there is a big wave against the Congress party, it might go to 20, might go to 18, might go to 17, but its base vote is about 16.5%. So in fact, if you look at the last election of 2014, BJP got 122. They were short by just about 20 odd from a majority of their own. Shiv Sena got 63, about half of the BJP, they were on their own. Then Shiv Sena got 19.5% vote because they contested more seats. So that sample gets a little bit skewed. Now the pattern that, and BJP then got 28.1% vote. Remember, that was the big push, big momentum of the 2014 Modi victory. Now if you look at this trend, it is very clear that for the past 30 years, BJP has been rising in Maharashtra. BJP, which was nearly non-existent in Maharashtra, has been rising, and Shiv Sena has been, in relation to the BJP, declining. In fact, even after BJP and Shiv Sena came together, relatively BJP's seats and vote share both increased and Shiv Sena's have declined. That is what is now galling Shiv Sena because they think, look, we were the leading party here. We were the dog that wagged the tail. Now the tail has become the dog, it's wagging us. So can we now use leverage to get even with them? Because 55, 56 seats matters a lot because no one else is likely to bring that many seats to BJP easily. The only ones who can do it if all of NCP switches to them, which will have other consequences. If such a thing were to happen, I think it will be unlikely at this point, but nothing is impossible in politics. So that is where you are right now. Shiv Sena is, let me say this in Hindi, a little bit of a case of rassi jal gayi, lekin bal nahi gaya. Because they still have delusions that we rule Maharashtra. They no longer rule Maharashtra. So why is it so that over these 30 years, especially last 20 years, Shiv Sena has been losing ground, losing the core Hindu, Marathi or Maharashtra vote to the BJP. Overall vote has remained the same. It's just shifting from Shiv Sena to the BJP. There are many reasons. One of the reasons is something that some senior Shiv Sena leaders, whose name I can't mention because it was off the record, said to me. They said that, look, we believe that Bala Sahab, the old man, the founder of Shiv Sena, he made a strategic error by shifting to Hindutva, by trying to become Hindu Hriday Samrat. He should have continued to speak for Marathi Hinduism, but in a purely Marathi context. Because once he shifted to the larger Hindutva platform, then there was no way he or any of his heirs were going to be able to compete with Narendra Modi. So by playing it to Narendra Modi's strengths, Shiv Sena has been ceding its votes to Narendra Modi's BJP. In fact, you can see that big change 2009 onwards because that's when Narendra Modi has begun to rise, and 2014, 19 it has become very stark now. So that is the reason Shiv Sena lost out on the ground to the BJP. The second thing with Shiv Sena is, the Thackerays. Bala Sahab Thackeray, Uddhav Thackeray. And they were famous. They controlled so much power in their party. They never contested any election. They never held any formal position. They had no responsibility except running their party. As a consequence, they also did not build any other leaders in the party. So most people who became leaders in Shiv Sena either have disappeared or have defected to other parties. I can tell you many names. Manohar Joshi was Chief Minister of Maharashtra, not an unpopular Chief Minister, and a decent man also. Later became Speaker of Parliament, completely forgotten after that. Nobody saw him as like number 2, number 3 figure or something in Shiv Sena, because Shiv Sena is one of those parties that don't like any leadership other than direct descendants of the family. Even the nephew could not survive there, that is Raj Thackeray, because Bala Sahab made a choice between nephew and the son, Uddhav. Look at more leaders. Chhagan Bhujbal, he was one of the earliest members and Shakha Pramukhs of Shiv Sena, became mayor of Mumbai twice. One of the most vocal, noisy, news-making activists and leaders of Shiv Sena. 1991, he went away with Sharad Pawar. He's been in NCP since then and has been a minister, etc., etc. Narayan Rane, again, senior Shiv Sena leader. As Manohar Joshi moved to Delhi, Narayan Rane was made chief minister. He was chief minister only for some time, because then the session ended, then the assembly session ended. Session means assembly term ended, and there was a fresh election. Sena-BJP lost that election. Vilas Rao Deshmukh became chief minister, and soon enough, in the course of time, Narayan Rane had defected to the Congress party. Again, a strongman of the Shiv Sena, former chief minister. Lately, he's defected a couple of times here and there. At this point, as we speak, he's in the BJP. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. He's one of those one day Ayaram, one day Gayaram. But he's right now in the BJP. So Narayan Rane also gone. Think of any other Shiv Sena leaders whose names you might remember. Scratch your head. You might remember Suresh Prabhu. Suresh Prabhu was among the most promising, clean. It wasn't quite his strength in the Shiv Sena, and I'll tell you why. Clean and effective and popular people to come out of Shiv Sena. He was not a mass leader. Vajpayee liked him. He was given very important ministries. I think he was given power, environment, and also he was consulted on many issues. Shiv Sena didn't like it. They don't want any leader acquiring any profile. So soon enough, Bal Thackeray had Vajpayee dismiss him and then explained it to me in a Walk the Talk, which you can go to NDTV's website and watch. His reasons for asking Vajpayee to drop Suresh Prabhu. He said, वो दिल्ली में है, मेरी पार्टी को पैसा चाहिए, वो पैसा ही नहीं कुछ दे रहा है. और मैंने कहा तुम पावर मिनिस्ट्री में हो, एनवायरमेंट में हो. उसने कहा यहाँ पे कुछ मिलता नहीं है. बाला साहब ने कहा, मैंने उसको बोला वो क्या नींबू है जो किसी ने निचोड़ के फेंक दिया है, उसके अंदर जूस नहीं है. And then Bala Sahab said something, and it's interesting because today is also Pramod Mahajan's birth anniversary. He said, मैंने प्रमोद महाजन से पूछा, it's on camera. मैंने प्रमोद महाजन से पूछा कि ये कैसे कह रहा है कि पैसा नहीं मिलता. प्रमोद महाजन ने कहा, दिल्ली में जो मंत्री है, अगर वो बोलता है कि पैसा नहीं बनता, तो या वो झूठ बोल रहा है, या वो अपने पास रख रहा है, या वो इनकॉम्पिटेंट है. सो बाला साहब ने कहा, चाहे वो झूठ बोल रहा हो, चाहे अपने पास रख रहा हो, चाहे इनकॉम्पिटेंट हो, मैं क्यों रखूं. सो द बेस्ट young, promising, and the most powerful, not so young also leaders, respected leaders of Shiv Sena, either fell by the wayside, as Manohar Joshi did, or went to other parties. Suresh Prabhu went to the BJP. Eventually, many others, as I mentioned to you, Chhagan Bhujbal went to NCP, Narayan Rane went to the Congress party, and now in the BJP. So, Shiv Sena has not only not built any second line or any talent, it has actually got rid of any talent that came up at any point of time. Now, finally, the third generation of the Thackeray's is more forthcoming. So, the third generation has gone out and contested, won an election for himself, but he wants to be chief minister for half the term. Now, is it going to work? I don't think so. I don't see the BJP conceding that. Although once again, there are precedents of Kumaraswamy and Nitish Kumar and some other people in the past also. But I don't see that happening this time with this BJP, because this BJP cannot concede that, because that will be big loss of face for Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. I think the BJP, I think if BJP has its sort of instincts right, it would rather go for a fresh election than concede something like this, and we may not even come to that. But second, if Shiv Sena were to decide to stay outside, I think once again the party will have a cohesion problem. Besides the family, there's almost nobody at the upper middle rungs of Shiv Sena whose loyalty and whose commitment the party can take for granted. So if Shiv Sena decides to stay out of this arrangement for whatever reason, I suspect they will have a hard time holding their party together. Having said that, and because I'm talking about Thackeray's, I can't let you go away without telling you a story about Bal Thackeray. So there was a time I wrote some article in which my national interest, in which I described him as a mafioso. So that evening I got a call from him. Somebody said, Bal Thackeray आपसे बात करना चाहते हैं. So I straightened up. I said, हाँ Bala साहब बताइए. So he said, अरे शेखर जी, of all the people who abuse me, you write most delightfully. तो मैंने कहा, फिर बाला साहब, what are you doing for me? So he said, I will invite you for dinner to my home. And I said, sure. He said, are you married? I said, yes. Bring your wife along. I said, fine. Are you non-vegetarian? I said, yes. अरे गुप्ता होके आप क्या करते हैं? मैंने कहा, आप ठाकरे होके जो मर्जी कर सकते हैं, हम गुप्ता होके जो मर्जी कर सकते हैं. आप क्या पीते हैं? मैंने कहा, आप जो पिलाएंगे मैं पी लूँगा. So he said, मैं सिर्फ वाइट वाइन पीता हूँ. रेड वाइन इज़ गुड फॉर द हार्ट. मैं उसको नहीं पीता हूँ बिकॉज आई एम ए हार्टलेस पर्सन. तो ठीक है, वी वेंट टू हिज हाउस, वी हैड डिनर. देन आदित्य वॉज ए चाइल्ड इन वन ऑफ दोज WWF World Wrestling Federation kind of t-shirts, and we struck quite an interesting rapport. Bala Sahab was a very interesting, colorful character, very different from his political persona and very knowledgeable. Then when he turned 75, his office reached out to me to set up a Walk the Talk with him, which is actually a Sit the Talk, which is where he told me this story of, very honestly, of why he fired Suresh Prabhu from that cabinet, from the BJP Sena cabinet. Also, once we finished that interview, he said, now you know that I drink white wine, you also drink white wine, so we must have a glass of white wine. So after we finished the interview, we toasted each other, we drank a glass of white wine each. You can see that picture behind me, and you can see his living room. Don't miss the tiger behind him and Michael Jackson on the wall, and of course our wine glasses. So that was the kind of character that Bala Saheb was.